Hello and welcome everyone. I'm John O'Loughlin. Welcome to McDuff Lives and welcome to a special night, a New York special tonight with our good friend Diane Sare and our new good friend Jose Vega. I'm very glad to meet you, Jose, and I've been admiring your work for at least a year now. And Diane, of course, I always enjoy our conversations and look forward to talking to you some more tonight. So let me just say hello and ask you both to say how you guys are doing tonight.
Not too good.
Not too good from a Jose. How about you, Diane?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. The rest of the world is in quite a wild turmoil. And I think we have a lot of work to do. And I think we also have a moment of great opportunity merely because things are so bad. And I think when people realize how bad things are, which is worse than they think, they may be compelled to act differently.
Okay, sounds pretty serious. Jose, what can we do to cheer you up?
Well, if you can bring peace to the world and wave a magic wand, I think that would probably make me feel better.
Let me see if I got
No, I say that because, well, there was
I got a bluebird here. How about some happy? There's a bluebird of happiness. How about that?
yeah,
There
maybe
you
you can
smile.
give that. I say I'm not too good because there was a shooting that happened here in the Bronx at
Oh
Mount
no.
Eden train station. I actually used to live in that neighborhood. Some people may know this story about my apartment where the ceiling in the basement apartment, like that was the train station near where I used to live. And it was 5 or 6 teenagers. And I think 5 of them have been wounded and one of them has been killed. And they were between the ages of 12 and 17. So that's weighing heavy on my mind. And I'm thinking of a proper response since this happened in the Bronx where I'm running for Congress.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you'll have to compose yourself and it's awful out there. It's awful. And Diane said, the world is so much worse than people realize. And I agree. And I was at the National Press Club about a month ago with some journalists, and one of them said to me, well, those of us that see how bad it really is, we've just got to stick together. And so when you see how bad it is, and from your perspective, you see it, I see it from a different perspective, and Diane a third. But when you now have made a decision to run for Congress, you must see some hope, some way of changing things. What is it that you think you can contribute by this effort to run for Congress, Jose?
Well, thank you for that alley oop question. It's something that I've been discussing with Diane because, Diane herself has also taken up this question of running for U.S. Senate,
Yeah,
representing all of New York. You know, you take what I described just now and what just happened, and then you take the fact that this is probably happening every day in news stories that are untold, right? And I mean, it's also only one part of the problem, one part of the equation. What we need to redefine what it actually means to be from the Bronx. We need to have this place be a place where people are calling for high speed rail around the country. And you actually need to rebuild the Bronx. You need the policies that we are calling for, such as a space CCC. And what this is a iteration on what FDR built in the 1930s with the CCC, the Civilian Conservation Corps. This was taking young men between the ages of 18 and 26, unemployed men, unskilled men, and giving them the skills, the tools, and the labor to actually go out and build infrastructure in the country. And a lot of these boys ended up either fighting in the war in World War II, or they were here working in the factories and the industries that were actually manufacturing the weapons and the parts that were being sent over there in the quote arsenal of democracy. But now you need to rebuild those capabilities, but not for war, but for reconstruction. If you want to call it a war on benign neglect. These areas like the Bronx have been left like this intentionally. They have been intentionally destroyed. And so what my run seeks to do is to redefine this area from the poorest district in the country to hopefully the most scientifically advanced district in the country. That's my goal.
And is it in fact the poorest district in the country, Jose?
The latest statistics that I saw on that, was I think from 1986 to 2020, I think is the figures there, that as of the last census. Yeah.
Well,
Like, because the way they gauge that is that they gauge it by how many people in the district actually live underneath the poverty line. And so the number is something like 35% of people who live in this district are underneath the poverty line.
and you mentioned like a civilian conservation corps idea. Of course, that's the New Deal framework of how to recover from the Depression. And Bronx, I guess, is in a depression, and a lot of places in the world are. Is there unemployment? Is that a big problem?
18% of young adults between the ages of 18 to 26 are unemployed. And of those 18%, I believe half of those are men or young men. This is all coming on my policy page pretty soon when the votevega.nyc website will be up and revamped with our very detailed policy page, which I'm very proud of. So it's coming soon. But yes, we do have those numbers sorted out for you. Yeah, so it's a pretty high unemployment rate here. But I suspect that the unemployment rate, because the Biden administration likes to boast high employment numbers, but what that is people doing stuff like Uber Eats, courier services, right? Unproductive jobs. And people are barely making ends meet with that to begin with, right? I mean, people are breaking their backs just to make that kind of stuff work. That's not a real productive job. I'm not saying people shouldn't do it right now because, I mean, it's the only way you can survive. Yeah, of course. But you need to bring real productive jobs back. You know, here in New York City, you have immigrants who are buying the identities of American citizens so that they can then get access to Uber Eats as a way to go and do courier services. So when you're getting your food delivered to you, the person who's on the app is not the person who's delivering the food to you.
Wow. I hadn't known that. I guess it makes sense, you know, so a person would pay somebody else to use their credentials?
Yeah, because you have to be an American citizen to use Uber Eats as a courier.
And that's the only real option in town if you need some work real fast. Wow.
Well, Diane saw the immigrant problem. She could tell you way more about it.
Well, go ahead, Diane. Tell us about it.
I can't tell you way more, but I went down to the Roosevelt Hotel in Manhattan when they were having everyone sleeping on the sidewalk. And the people I met were from Mauritania, Senegal, Guinea, in other words, West Africa. Now that seems kind of odd. That's not really, we don't share a border with those countries. So thank God I had a tiny bit of French from high school and asked a young fellow from Mauritania how he came to be sleeping on the sidewalk at the Roosevelt Hotel. And he said, basically, he said, oh, thank Biden. They came and told us the borders are open and for $5,000. And I think he just pulled together everything from his whole extended family to buy a plane ticket to fly to Nicaragua, to get on a bus, to risk his life, to come up through the border. Maybe he had to pay again. Here he is in New York with nothing excepting a story about how much great hope and potential there is. Meanwhile, drawing the wrath of the American people who are upset, rightly so, that, for example, when we had a severe wind and rain storm here, they determined that this crazy aluminum tent in the field in Brooklyn was going to blow away. So they had all of the 2,000 people in that particular shelter move into a high school And they had to tell the parents, sorry, your kids are back to remote learning while we have this emergency. I mean, it's all insane. And it's the people on the ground, both the families and kids who are stuck in remote learning. Now, they did move everyone back into their aluminum tent. But for 4 days or 3 days or something, they had the school shut down. So the people living in the tent are suffering. The people who actually live in the neighborhood are suffering. All of us are being used as cash cows by a bankrupt system. I heard, I haven't been able to confirm it, that the bus companies are being paid something like $1,400 a head by Homeland Security to transport these people here. I do know from an elected official that a small town in New York had a warehouse where the town got very suspicious because there were all these people suddenly standing outside of this warehouse with suitcases who didn't speak English. So they began an investigation and discovered the warehouse owner was getting paid $5,000 per person to put them up. So it's just a disgusting, satanic way of using human beings to launder money, move cash from one place to the other. I'm sure if we were to scratch into it, we'd find BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street. I don't know how they would be tied in, but I suspect very strongly that they are, because who owns these airplanes? Who is capable of running such large sums of money, and why, and for what purpose, except to create conditions of chaos? So I have to say, what I know just creates more questions, but there's clearly a fraud here. It stinks to high heaven. And if we had a sane government, we'd get on top of what was going on.
There is a statue, as I recall, out in the harbor of New York. This lady with her arm in the air with a torch, and she says, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, yearning to breathe free. Send these, wretched tempest tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. America's the golden door. And liberty is the beacon. And your friends, the people, the Mauritanians that just showed up, your new co-residents in New York City, they're the new immigrants. How did it happen that they got here? Well, that's one of the, you said satanic, and I think you're exactly right, is that there is a system in place that's trying to change the whole world in such a way that we're interchangeable, and people are being shuffled around in order to destroy the culture that they came from, and to disrupt the culture that they're going to, so that eventually everybody has lost their bearings as to where they come from and where they're going. And that makes us all easily manipulated by simple human needs. If I need to eat, I need a place to sleep. So we, as the people of the earth, are certainly being manipulated, whether we're, the poor people that fall into these traps paying $5,000. That's the story of Casablanca. Give me the letters of transit. Well, where did you get those from? Well, you had to pay somebody for the paper, right? Yeah. And all of these schemes of you can escape from this hell if you pay $5,000. That's been going on for centuries. And the people that can find the money with their relatives, boy, they do, because they are living in hell, and probably it's better for them sitting in front of the Roosevelt Hotel than whatever circumstances they were living in, because they're coming from places that have been intentionally destroyed. And I'm sorry for the Bronx's. Didn't they have the '64 World Fair? Wasn't that in the Bronx? I know it was right down you might remember it, Diane. I know it's before Jose's time, but the '64 World's Fair with the big globe, and the lizard. You
How old do
remember?
you think Diane is?
Huh? I know you don't remember this, Jose, but
It's also before my time. It's before my time, but not by that much. But anyway,
64 was a little bit early for Diane then.
It was in Queens.
Oh, it was in Queens. Okay.
Yeah, you can still see that globe if you go over by LaGuardia Airport. And I have friends actually who got turned on to fusion energy because they were talking about fusion back in that '64 World's Fair there.
You know what was in the Bronx, though? The United Nations. Because before it found its permanent place in Manhattan, it was at Lehman College.
I'm not familiar with Lehman College. That's interesting.
Yeah. 1941. That's not 41, but that's where it was. That's where it was its temporary location until they relocated it down to Manhattan.
And of course, the Schiller Institute, and you all are connected to the UN through your representative. I don't know who your representative is right now. I remember. I think it was it Dennis Small? No, not. Anyway, the Schiller Institute has always have a connection to the UN historically, and so there's a lot of opportunities for anybody right there in the Big Apple to try to do something good, but you have to work with the system as it is. Diane, what is the political landscape there that Jose's stepping into? From your perspective, having seen it for a while, I know there's a representative that Jose has made a few comments about, but is there like an existing voting bloc that always controls that district, or is there ethnic issues? Is there what type of politics is local, right? So tell me a little bit about what the local scene is that Jose is going to be attempting to conquer.
Well, Jose can probably tell you more about than I, excepting what I will tell you is the insane New York situation. And I have to say, for those people who are deluded enough to think that Michael Bloomberg was a good mayor, even though he's been knighted by the Queen and spends his time in London, he wanted to get rid of elections, and that's what they're working on doing. So we had the peculiar challenge. As you know, I was the only person in the state of New York to succeed in getting the 45,000 ballot signatures to get on the ballot in a statewide race. The Libertarian Party failed, the Green Party failed. Part of the challenge of that was the rules are you have to get 500 valid signatures in half of the state's 26 congressional districts, and they were in court over where the district lines were during the petitioning period. And the Board of Elections only made the map available to us 4 days before we had to file the signatures. And I filed for an intervention along with the Libertarian Party saying this is a hardship. How can you mandate that we have to get signatures in particular districts when we don't even know the lines of those districts? We're out there for 6 weeks blind, and then in the last 4 days, you're going to tell us where these things are. Well, guess what? They're doing this again. So on February 28th, the Democratic Party, I guess, or someone challenged the new lines. So they're going to present a new proposal February 28th that may or may not go to court. And after that, we'll see. So at the moment, Jose has a generally vague idea about what his district is, but doesn't know actually what his district is.
Yes.
That's a big challenge. Tell us more, Jose.
The way the district is divided right now and has been since the last redistricting, and generally has been true for the last 10 years, is it's kind of like a tale of two cities. So my district, New York 15, traditionally has always been the entire South Bronx. So we don't have a map of the Bronx, but down in Mott Haven up to Morrisania, and then over to the east with Hunts Point and then Parkchester Soundview. What they did in the last redistricting was they kind of split the South Bronx in half. So right now it's Morrisania, Mott Haven, Foxhurst, not Morris Heights anymore, up to Fordham Road and Riverdale, which is where we get into the second city that I'm telling you about. But they got rid of Hunts Point, Soundview, and Parkchester, and they gave that to AOC. So they split the South Bronx in half, weakening the voter base in the South Bronx that may not be so sympathetic to what is going on with the Gaza situation. And they strengthened the district up in Riverdale, where the population there may be more sympathetic to what the Israelis are doing. In other words, it's just clear gerrymandering, what's going on. And so, I mean, rightfully so, they throw out the district maps, but I mean, it's just going to get more and more nasty. You asked me specifically, what kind of political landscape am I getting into? A nasty one, to put it to you lightly. I mean, the way the things work here, from my understanding, is that the councilmen, the assemblymen, and even the state senators' role is they are the ones who elect the congressman, and they're the ones who mobilize for the congressman. That's generally how these things work, because they have a more of a grip of the population and of the district. And this is just pretty much true for New York City as a whole. So that's one kind of machine you're going after. The other one is, are we on YouTube? Can I say things that we can't say on YouTube?
You can say whatever you want to, and if I think I need to, I'll just take it down after the show.
Okay, well, there's Electric Frog, here in New York City. That's another big one. And you're also dealing with, just straight up corruption, just to put it lightly as well. You're dealing with.
What is Electric Frog? What's that?
Election.
Rhymes with election. Oh, I'm sorry. Election frogs. Okay.
Electric frogs. Yes, careful, because some of these words get picked up by the bots on YouTube, so you have to rhyme them out. But the other thing you're dealing with is just low voter turnout. People in the Bronx have probably some of the. I think last time I checked, it was either the number one lowest borough, or I think after Brooklyn, it was probably like the worst voter turnout in the city, which rightfully so. People have no faith in our elections anymore, and I don't blame them. But Diane and I are here to give them a reason to go back and vote again.
I guess how many votes would you need to win the seat in your district? A few thousand, or like 20,000, or 500,000?
If this was a midterm, which is not a midterm, if it was a midterm, it would have been 67,000 or so. Okay. Because it is a general election, 191,000 people came out to vote, and Richie Torres ran against a Republican challenger who nobody takes seriously in this district. I mean, they just put Republicans up just to put him up. Mm-hmm. I think he got something like 160,000 votes out of the total of 190,000 votes in the general election in this district. So all I need is 170,000, and we should be okay.
Okay, all right. Well, a few bus loads, and we just get up there and switch IDs with the Uber drivers.
No.
Buses. You can just send them in by mail, or give them to me, and I'll take them in a truck and put all the
Diane, we can't be saying.
All right. Well, it sounds like a bit of an uphill fight, Jose, to put it mildly. And you mentioned that the seat is usually controlled by the councilmen and women and the state delegation. So that begs the question: why not start there? Is there any chance of getting into the city council, for instance, or as a state senator or representative?
because I don't want to go up the corrupt ladder of having to degrade myself at every step of the way, just to then finally get to the most compromised position where I couldn't do anything I actually wanted to do as a congressman. And
Yeah.
secondly, we don't have the time to wait. I mean, these decisions are happening at a federal level. Okay, there is a genocide happening in Gaza right now. Now, does this mean that don't worry, we'll come and save the day in November? No. The point of these campaigns is to mobilize so that we can stop that. Honestly, if we could stop it next week, great. But my fear is that this continues into November. If this continues into November, honestly, I think I might have failed as a candidate. I'm just being transparent. I don't know. Diane can contradict me if you want, but if this genocide continues into November, we did something wrong. So
people are starting to get motivated. Finally, I think even out here in the grassroots, don't give up, because you're absolutely right. This United States of America should stand up against this genocide, and you are. I commend you wholeheartedly for taking a stance, and Diane, yourself as well. It's. I mean, that's why I wanted to get you guys on the show, because I'm just damn proud to know a couple of people that are willing to stand up against that horrible machine and the corruption and the. You put it so well when you described the ladder that you have to climb, and when you get to the top, then you're completely unable to do anything. You might as well be a zombie, like some people that are sitting in the White House.
Yeah, that's how the symbiotic relationship works.
I want to read you something that was on I'm part of a WhatsApp group of Muslim Americans who are trying to figure out if they can use their actually considerable voting power to shift things. And you may have heard that Biden, they refused to meet with Biden in Michigan, which is a very big deal. And so then the New York Post or Wall Street Journal actually said that Dearborn was a jihadist state, which is an outrage, absolutely disgusting that they would say that. The mayor is demanding an apology and damages, because I think they had to pay extra for security and all kinds of things after these racist comments. So one person, because as you know now, Israel, they gave people 24 hours notice to leave the north, move to the south. You have about 1.5 million homeless, starving people in a little area in the south of Gaza near Rafah, the border where what little supplies can get in, come in. And Israel has decided that they are going to start attacking this area with horrific losses. And I was reading today that they're definitely downplaying and undercounting the death toll. Someone just prior to this sent me a horrible video of just one baby being brought in after the next dead. So the person on this thread writes, "The times are super, super grim. Hold your anger and embrace for impact, and focus your energy very well that we must own this political system. We must be in charge from now on. Keep your anger high and hold all the pain inside, and do not normalize the pain." And I thought this was really important. It brought to mind something William Warfield said, and I know, John, you know who William Warfield was, a magnificent baritone singer who was very close friends with Lyndon and Helga LaRouche, impeccably fluent, flawless German. And he used to have a great time with Helga, with his wild preacher's son sense of humor. And someone asked him, how do you, because and maybe even more so when he was older and his voice wasn't in the best shape, but the poetical intent, like when you heard him sing Der Erlkönig, you could hear the voices of death and the father and the child just so clearly. And someone said, how do you do that? How do you convey it? He said, look, when I prepare to perform, I actually push myself over the brink of the emotional connection where where I'm brought to tears. I lose it. I have to know where that border is. And then when I perform, I go to the border, not across, to that boundary. And this is really important because we live in a society where now they have you doing all these psychological things when you go to the doctor. Are you depressed? Blah, blah, blah. And if I say I have trouble sleeping because of the situation in Gaza, which I do, they think that I need to be medicated or something. I don't need to be medicated. I'm in reality. Why doesn't the world feel? Are you supposed to be happy when your government is perpetrating horrors against innocent people? Are you supposed to merrily go about your life? I'm not debilitated. Perhaps if I found myself actually debilitated by the anguish that I feel about this, that would be cause to seek help or something. But, it's a little bit of a sick society when you have people who are, say, on the brink of becoming homeless. How many Americans, if they had to get a major car repair, would fall short on their rent or mortgage payment, or lose their housing or their car because they have a medical emergency? So if they're anxiety ridden and stressed out, does that mean they need to be on drugs? It might mean that they're actually living in reality, and perhaps we should change the reality. And you develop strength. Um, Lyndon LaRouche, and by the way, today not only is Lincoln's birthday, it's the 5-year anniversary of LaRouche's death, and it's really sitting with me in a certain way. But he once made an apology to some of our members. And I didn't hear what he said, but he said, "I'm sorry, I lost my temper." It was in the 90s and it was over genocide going on in Africa. And he said, "It was wrong of me to become enraged." And he said, "We have to consider that it is the weakness of the situation, that the people who are being wiped out through starvation at that point in the Horn of Africa, that is the strength of the moral impulse to change it. It is that weakness which will fire the conscience of people who have to act to address it." And I do think that's what we're now seeing with Gaza, that if people, rather than flee from the pain or the anguish, you take it as a knot in your stomach, as a strength, that I place my guide on this hill. I am standing here. We are not going to allow this to happen. I will do everything in my power to change the trajectory that we are currently on. And I think that's the moment in which we find ourselves. And I think more and more people are becoming possessed by that right kind of anguish.
And to me, it also just yesterday, as you know, the Super Bowl is the big deal, and the media wants everybody to watch the Super Bowl, and I think they were fairly successful at it. I watched a little bit of it, but it was always tinged with the idea of what is going on in Gaza. And when I woke up this morning and looked at the Twitter, which I look at first, and I saw somebody was exposing, this Kels guy and Taylor Swift, and how, I mean, Pfizer had paid them like $20 million to endorse their product, and the whole deal of using the big show and all of this money and glitter, and and building up a pop star like Taylor Swift, who is so attractive to young people. And what are the parents going to say? This is great. Yeah, let's go see the Taylor Swift concert, or applaud her in the Super Bowl when you see her there smiling. But it's all fake. It's all a bunch of tinsel. It's all a bunch of people putting on an act, making tons of money, but also distracting us, the bread and circuses of, of gladiator type sports are distracting us from what is really going on in the world. And so when somebody like you, who has a conscience and uses it and lets it be a part of your life, faces this, you can't sleep at night. And I I wish that everybody could have that experience. But what is it? What is it other than a great psychological operation to dull our consciences, to take away that inner sense of right and wrong, and turn us into, as I was saying before, interchangeable serfs that do what we're told because we don't know any better. I thank God for the education that I've had, and I'm very grateful that I have been able to study these things for a number of years now since I finished practicing law. And yeah, it's really, really bad. But a situation like Gaza, I do think, is touching enough hearts that it is a chance, and you guys can carry the flag on this politically, and hopefully maybe you will get that 170,000 votes, Jose, because it's an issue that people do identify with. We haven't lost our consciences, but we've got to fight to make sure that we don't lose them in the future.
Well, I think Diane is probably better equipped to answer that question about how do we actually get people to change, given that she's been a choral conductor and her longer association with this organization than I have. But I will say this: don't give up on the Swifties. That's the name that the young people call themselves who are Taylor Swift fans.
Okay.
A lot of them are not forgiving of Taylor Swift. I've been seeing this unwittingly. I have not wanted to see this, and I have not watched the Super Bowl, but people have been calling out. People who are in the Taylor Swift community have been saying, we should be speaking out more about what's going on in Gaza. We're going to boycott Taylor Swift's music unless she says something. And the thing that really set them on fire was when this article came out that Biden was looking for the Taylor Swift endorsement. And the Taylor Swift fan just went rabid and said, if she does that, I will never listen to her music again. So I think you can have some hope that if people
great.
are presented, if people are presented with some truth, their reason will follow the truth. I had this question earlier too, like, how would I deal with what if the majority of my constituency wants something that I think is wrong, and I had to really think about that for a second. And now that I've thought about it and I formulate, I realize, I can have some faith in my constituency that if they've been led astray and I'm able to educate them and present them with reasonable evidence and truth, they're not going to listen to me. They're going to listen to what's true and what's reasonable, and they'll follow that. So you can I guess, have some faith in people that if you can present to them the truth, they will listen.
Well, that's what hasn't been allowed, right? That's why they don't have debates. You're not allowed to question anything that we are ordered to do, whether it's particular medical treatments. You're not allowed to have a debate about that. Whether it's climate change, you're not allowed to have a debate about that. So fundamentally, the people are being told, the establishment thinks you're a moron, and we're going to tell you what you have to do. And of course, this has the effect, which also may be intended. If you ban discussion, then people say, oh, that must be true because it's banned. So I'd use this example the other day, the idea that the earth is flat. Well, so you can prove the earth is not flat. You can even lead people to particular constructions and delightful scientific experiments and observations of the star and all kinds of things, so that people could prove for themselves and know that the planet is not flat. And that would be really wonderful. I don't know. Do people get banned from Facebook for saying the earth is flat? I think it's not really encouraged. So that causes, they don't want us to say this, so therefore it must be true. because people have developed such distrust in the government, richly deserved by this particular administration and many others, that they then presume that everything they're told is a lie, and they've lost the ability to do critical thinking.
That flat earth is a good example because you see it, it comes in waves, right? You see a whole bunch of flat earth stuff for a while, and then you don't see it for a while, and then they send you a whole bunch more of it through your social media. And I see it, and then I see people buying into it, and I say, oh no, come on now, you're smarter than that, aren't you? Who was that guy over in the ancient world that dug a hole down and just so deep so that he could see where the shadow, I mean, he had it all figured out 3,000 years ago. But no, and it's the same thing. They won't argue with you. They're telling it's a flat earth. You cannot break through their conviction that it is flat by the, it's one of those situations that I think they set up. It's like a psychological operation, like the way they choose particular phrases. Well, Black Lives Matter is a great example, right? It irritates you. On the one side, it irritates you. On the other side, it irritates you that other people get irritated at it. I mean, well, of course, Black Lives Matter, but you don't know what I'm saying. Black Lives Matter because you don't think Black Lives Matter. Of course, I think Black Lives Matter. I think all lives matter. You can't say that. I'm trying to make a point here. And so it's psychologically charged phrases that they throw at us that try to keep us up in arms against each other, confused, unwilling to take a chance on being wrong. What if you're wrong and you said, the earth is round and it turned out that you were wrong. It really is flat. Oh no, I shouldn't have said anything. Well, okay, let's talk about the system while we have a few minutes left. Yeah, most people, I think, are saying, it's all fixed now. The voting machines, the media, the censorship, it's all fixed. Yet you guys are forging ahead. What is the alternative? If we don't believe in the system that we have, is there anything else? Is there any other way to change things other than trying one more time to have a free and fair election? I think we have to just keep trying.
We do. I think the momentum is growing to clean up certain things. And Jose and I have a common friend who seems to be very frustrated on this point. Why do you even run for office? Shouldn't you get all the towns? Or it kind of misses the point. I'm brought back to when we had a mobilization with some friends, the JASTA Act, Justice Against State Sponsors of Terrorism. The families of 9/11 wanted to be able to bring Prince Bandar and other Saudi officials to justice. And was it Obama? Who was president then?
Yeah, it was Obama who vetoed it.
Yeah, he vetoed it. And you had Saudi sheiks running through the Congress, which is not that unusual, handing out money or whatever they hand out, I don't know, and oil fields and jewelry or whatever. We also have Ukrainian Nazis handing out swastika trinkets, but that's another story. But anyway, the Congress, it became such pressure that no one wanted to be seen going against the 9/11 families that they voted overwhelmingly, like virtually unanimously, to override Obama's veto. And so I think that's the power. It's a kind of a cultural shift. We can't give you, first you do X and then Y happens, and then you get Y and then Z happens. And we're going to go to the city council and we're going to tell them to do blah, blah, blah. And then they're going to do it and then they will count your vote. History isn't made that way. Try and explain how the Berlin Wall came down using that method.
No, I'm not going to try.
Jose, you say something. I'm talking way too much, and you're so
No,
much.
I concur with everything you said. I mean, I'm a proponent of like paper ballots, honestly.
Oh yeah.
Look, well, we sat down with somebody, a New York State official, and that's as far as I'll say who we sat down with, who told us, and this was an elected official. Okay, this was not like some small fry guy. This was like somebody who knows the ins and outs of Albany and of New York City. And he says to us, well, first he says to me, "Oh, you should run as a Democrat. You should have ran as a Democrat against Richie Torres. God, you would have had so much money thrown at you because genocide is so profitable. If you say ceasefire now, people just throw money at you." And then I said, "Do you honestly think that the voting system would honestly let me get a vote against Richie Torres?" And this person said, "Well, I was there when the Board of Elections took all the voting machines and put them in the Board of Elections building and locked the building and then just started manipulating the switches. Just started changing the votes."
Mm-hmm.
I said to him, "You need to come out and say this publicly." And rather than addressing what I was saying, he just kept getting into more detail and worse and worse and worse and how bad things are. And finally he said, "Okay, it'll be in my book. It'll be in my book. When I publish my book, it'll be in my book." Like, we need to know this now. Look, the people who don't vote, no, it's a rigged system. The people who do vote, no, it's a rigged system. I mean, what are the Trump supporters going to do? Seriously, like what are they going to do? Because they know what happened in 2020, right? No matter what you think about the guy, he was cheated out of the election. That's just objectively what happened. What are they going to do this year? They need to figure something out. We need to figure something out. The entire election system needs to be changed completely, way before November. And I know there's some efforts towards that. I know there's like this group, New York Citizens Audit, that's been doing some work on that. I don't know it too closely myself. I think Diane's more involved with that, but yeah. We need a big change in reform, and I would trust a paper ballot with a transparent box over anything. So,
Amen to that. And can I just say that I think bottom line, what we really need is people with character. The idea of I'm somebody that understands right and wrong, and that's pretty much enough for me to come in and make the right decisions for the constituents. Because most the idea that a politician would actually use morality as a way to make decisions is kind of passé. Nobody thinks of that anymore. But what you're pointing out is the simple reality of this is a genocide. And it's not that hard for people to understand it. And, for whatever good or bad, it's quite easy to see it. If you turn on Twitter or so many other social media, you can see the genocide. You can see it happening. And so this is an opportunity, a sad opportunity, a sad night for all of us. But again, you guys are the hope, and I'm really, really grateful that you're doing what you're doing. So yeah, people are still good inside. We are. Don't lose that. We all are good inside, and we have resentments. We have things that we don't think we'll ever get over. But nevertheless, everybody, hey. We have inalienable rights. We have a constitution. They can't take that away from us. We can throw it away, but as long as we stand behind the Constitution, I think we have a chance that our system can be repaired. And certainly, people with good character is the main thing that I would vote for right now. I see our former Governor Hogan down here in Maryland is now going to run for the Senate. No, no. I've seen enough of Larry Hogan to know he doesn't qualify under my good character qualifications. But geez, that's what I think it really is going to take, is for enough people to feel that interconnection with, I'm a good person, and I can tell that Jose's a good person, and I can tell that Diane's a good person, and forget about parties. Let's just get some good people in office.
I agree. I think I said this at a libertarian podcast that I was on, but I wasn't trying to get their vote or anything. But I said that I thought that what you said. I said I think if Angela McArdle wanted to run for Senate, I would totally be for it. Not because I agree with anything she has to say on economics at all. You probably put me in a room with her, and we talk about economics. One of us would come out dead, but she had a kid, and she brings that baby to like the things she does, all the activities she does. That's what she's motivated by. That's a woman I can trust making decisions for my country. That's a woman who I think would be open-minded to a discussion. That's, already leagues above qualified than anybody who's in power right now.
Well, Diane, how about you? Would you like to have the last word? I think we're getting up toward the end of the hour.
Well, I would like to express my wholehearted agreement with you that people are good, and we have to fight for that. And unlike the three of us, everybody isn't always their best self all of the time.
You ain't talking to me. Oh gosh. You ever seen me get into a Twitter war? I've got a temper. But anyway, putting that aside.
Well, but it means that sometimes when we take someone on, they actually really appreciate it, because it's a way of liberating their better self, as long as you never succumb to hate. You can't succumb to hate. You have to love and fight for that better person that's in there somewhere, and then do battle with the rotten, ugly, stupid things they say. And I think if all of us had this faith in the goodness of our fellow brothers and sisters, then we would conduct ourselves differently, and we would have more faith that we can solve the problems that are before us. And I don't think we are faced with any problem which cannot be solved. And I don't think the innocent children who have died in Gaza are going to have died in vain, because we are going to make sure that those lives have meaning and are not forgotten by changing the entire dynamic of the world and developing the Gaza Strip as part of a Palestinian state, which is going to have beautiful cities where these people will be remembered.
That sounds like a nice way to close our evening together, guys. Jose Vega.
I endorse what Diane said. That's my final words.
Oh, and I got one more piece of business, and that is I want people to support your campaign, Jose. How do people do that?
People can go to votevega.nyc. I'm hoping to unroll Vote Vega 2.0 by the end of this week, which means we'll have our full policy page ready to go and set up. So that's votevega.nyc.
And to change the U.S. Senate in 2024, Diane, how do people support your effort?
My website is sareforsenate.com, and that's SAREFOR, not the number, FOR, Senate.com.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have had a really interesting evening here, getting to know Jose and Diane both better. And I really do hope that we are talking to the next congressman from the Bronx and the next senator from the state of New York, Diane, Sare, and Jose Vega. Thanks again, everybody, for being with us. I will see you tomorrow morning with author Kevin Galloway to talk about his book, The Depopulation Agenda. So that'll be interesting. Good night, everyone.